Hello and welcome to another Which Bookie horse racing preview. I'm joined once again by Will Smith. We are previewing York's Dante Festival. So it's a midweek festival. Kicks off tomorrow on Wednesday. We're going to be covering Thursday's card and Friday's Fancies too. We don't have final declarations for Friday just yet, but Will and myself will be telling you where our eyes are drawn at this stage. There will be a link in the description for the Which Bookie website where you can find all of mine and Will's final selections for every single day when there's a fancy that we've got. And then there's a new page on the Which Bookie website as well for Will's anti-post fancies. So they're quite clear and concise to see. Lots of good stuff to get stuck into. What we're going to do for this, though, is preview the group races because there's a lot of action across the 3 days. We want to try and keep it as concise and as clear as we can. And then we'll do any extra fancies from each of the days. So we'll do the two group races for day one first, Will. Then I'll come back to you for any other fancies. And then I think we can just get going. So that first group race on Wednesday is the Duke of York Clipper Stakes. Group 2 over 6 furlongs. Looks a pretty good renewal. We've got Knight Raider in here at 11-4 favourite. Elite Status top price 4-1, but that's going fast. This is being recorded just before 1 o'clock on Tuesdays. Probably a more general 7-2 shot. Innis Sherrin's in there at 9-4. Done these in the wrong order because they're showing up funky on the race and post site. Flora of Bermuda's in there at 13-2. Then it is double figures. Everything else will. But this looks a really competitive race. I don't want to say it was straightforward, but I did feel like there was a big discrepancy in the prices right from the off. So I'll be interested to know your thoughts on who you think would be the most, most likely winner and maybe the most obvious bet in the race.
Elite Status for me. I presume that, given you're nodding your head, that's the one for you as well. I was surprised, how he was priced up to begin with as well. He started last season in really good fashion, didn't he? His 3-year-old season by winning the listed race at Newbury. He then went on to win back at Newbury in the Hackwood. Before he was drawn, his 2 Group 1s after that in the Haydock Sprint Cup and the Champions Sprint at Ascot. It was much like a lot of the top level sprints. If you're drawn away from the action or drawn on the worst part of the ground, you can just write off any particular run and forgive a horse. And I think that's what we can do with Elite Status with those 2 runs, because the Haydock Sprint Cup run back end of last year, you just had to be drawn in a single figure box over towards the centre of the track. Otherwise, you could rip up your chance, really. And actually, Elite Status did much the best of those that raced stand side, him and Swing Along. I think the form figures are a bit of an anomaly with regards to Elite Status, those last 2 runs. Sometimes people look at them and you think, sprinter, he's just a bit on the downgrade, he's not going to train on, etc., etc. But I don't subscribe to that at all. I think he should be favourite in here, ahead of the ownership mate, Innis Sherrin, who has a bit to prove now off the back of a wind-up, and he was drawn similar to Elite Status in that Haydock Sprint Cup and finished further back. So a little bit of a watching brief with regards to him. And then you've got the likes of Knight Raider, Marshman. They've got it to prove on turf for me. And then Flora of Bermuda, Kurdos, Rage of Bambi, just not quite sure they're up to Elite Status's level, really. So it looks a good bet. Fairly simple, really, for me. Elite Status at the price, given he's not favourite, I'd probably recommend backing him until he is favourite.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same, and there's not really probably too much that's worth adding on top of that. The thing with Innis Sherrin was he was sick for that Guineas at the start of last season, wasn't he? Then dropped down as a sprinter. He was good at 6 furlongs, but it was on slower ground. And I know he won at Royal Ascot in the Commonwealth Cup on good to firm ground, but he was only him and one other horse that was rated over 110 in there. So I wouldn't really say it was actually as good a race as it typically can be. He did surprise me a little bit there, but it's the fact that he disappointed again after, like you touched on. So, he might be ready to go first time, mightn't he? Because the Guineas trip was probably wrong for him last year. But I still don't fully believe that this is exactly the right trip for him. I think he may have been a bit fortunate last year, but could be proven wrong with that. But the fact that he's 9-4, Elite Status, I think he opened up at 5-1 in places for this race. And then, like you say, of Knight Raider as well, has got it to prove on the turf. He's obviously trained by Carl Burke as well. Carl Burke in a stable tour for York has basically nodded a bit towards Elite Status, saying that he did a frightening piece of work. He didn't say frightening, I've made that up. He said he did a fantastic piece of work on last Friday, or something to that effect, saying that he's in really good form and he expects him to go well. And I think a track like York as well, especially on real fast ground with him being a speedbally type, everything's just set up to suit him. That Carnarvon Stakes win at Newbury, the beginning of last season, I looked at him and thought, wow, he is going to be an absolute weapon. And like you say, backed it up in the Hackwood and then just probably did have excuses after. It's one of these ones that's massively wrong on the price. Like he should be favourite without doubt in there. But I do massively respect Inisherin and Night Raider on potential. On RPRs, they've both done 120s. Elite Status has done a 119. So there's not much between them, but I feel like he's the most solid option. He's the best price of the three of them. And I think he's the most likely winner. So happy days, group racing for us, Will. It's easy, isn't it?
It's easy, yeah, beforehand on paper. We'll see come the day tomorrow whether it's as easy as it sounds.
Absolutely. And I think this is obviously where price comes into everything, doesn't it? I mean, if Elite Status was like a 7-4 shot, I would still think he's going to go and win the race, but it then changes your mind about whether there'd be a bet or not, I suppose. We'll move on to the other group race for Wednesday, the Musidora Stakes, Group 3 for Fillies, over 1 mile, 2.5 miles, Will. This is a market that I don't agree with. I think there's a lot of horses. It is a very competitive race, but same as the first race, I'm not 100% sure the market's got things as it should be. I thought Miss Tonnerre was stupidly overpriced. 8-1 generally now, was about 10-1 when the final declarations came in from here. But I think she's just one of those that's one to keep on side this season. She was green on her debut when she got up. They then threw her into the May Hill Stakes, which is a Group 2 at Doncaster when she was beaten by Desert Flower. Flight was in second. January was in third. They're all 105 plus fillies. And even the horse that she had behind, Ecstatic, that's 99 rated, I think still in Ireland. That ran well in the Park Empress Stakes, the Group 3, when it had Whirl, who's the current 11-to-1 favourite, well behind. Now, I'm not saying that's completely and utterly literal form, but I see no reason why Miss Tonnerre should be 8-1 when all the other horses that I give respect to, even Smokin's looked quite good, but I think was maybe flattered last time out. It looked like a better win than it was because I think the runner-up was a little bit unlucky, and then that runner-up has run well since. But I just looked at it and thought, I can see why the ones towards the front, like Whirl, Smoke and Serenity Player, Go-Go Boots, I do quite like Go-Go Boots, to be fair, but I can see why they're all about a 3 or 4-1 shot. But in the mix of this, I don't see why Miss Tonnerre's sort of twice the price as those. So I think she's an obvious shortener. I think she's one to keep an eye on through this season. Do I definitely think she's going to win this race? No, I don't. And because there's 6 runners, there's no real each way juice in there. I might be tempted to have Go-Go Boots and Miss Tonnerre in a reverse forecast, but at anything north of 6-1 for Miss Tonnerre, I will be having a couple of quid on. How did you see this one, Will? Because I do think that pretty much anything could win this. Yeah.
I found these types of races where you've got obviously improving 3-year-old fillies at this time of year to be, completely dogmatic, I always find difficult because you don't quite know what chunk of improvement is there at this particular stage of the season. And I think that's very much the case with Whirl because, like you said, on bare form, all the collateral form lines, she should be probably 3rd or 4th in the market in here. But she's trained by Aidan O'Brien, of course, who mopped up all the classic trials last week and has been mopping them up over in Ireland as well. And so you imagine there's going to be a big chunk of improvement to come from Whirl, but it would need to be, really. But equally, the opposition that she's taking on here is, I don't think there's any potential superstars is the best way of putting it. Now, with the likes of Serenity Prayer and Smokin and Go-Go Boots, they're only very, very lightly raced. So they are open to that big chunk of improvement as well. And like you, I think the one that, or one of the ones that I was visually most intrigued by, given the manner in which she did it last time out, was Go-Go Boots. Obviously, it was only a Lingfield polytrack novice event over 10 furlongs, but just if you watch that race, just the manner in which she does it, she goes through the race really nicely, and then when the button is pushed, there's something about her finishing effort that just makes you think, oh, that was pretty smart there. And you can imagine York suiting that type of horse, definitely. So yeah, it's not a betting race, I don't think, for me, and probably won't be. I don't think anything is going to come to light for me over the next 24 hours that's going to push me one way or the other, but probably the most interesting horse in the race for me would be Go-Go Boots.
I like it. And this is why it's good as well to look at stuff early enough. I know we'll do it anyway, but it gives you a bit of a line in the sand of what the prices are now. We can see market movements and things before it because there will be lots of horses that are running in here that may improve for it or maybe we're weak on the day for whatever it is. Because Smokin's form's all on bad ground, isn't it, so far? Not to say that she definitely won't get it. I think Miss Tonnerre wouldn't really want it rattling fast, but they're going to make it okay racing. We'll find out a bit more as we get through a few of them. Maybe we won't have found out enough by 3:45 on Wednesday, though, for me to have a bet either. But like I said, I mean, I have already played Miss Tonnerre at a price, but she'd need to retain being above 6-1, I think, for me to want to keep her in for the column. Right, Will, that's the two, I guess, say big races. They're all quite good races at York, aren't they? For day one, there's obviously quite a few races that we haven't covered. Probably lots of races that we could get really excited about. I still get a little bit scared at the start of the season for York because it is still early enough on. And I know there will be pattern trainers that do things at certain times of year and draws and things will come into it. But especially for day one, we don't know too much, I guess, on that front. Was there anything from the other races that caught your eye before we've seen any racing?
Yeah, there was in the 242, the 6 furlong Churchill Tyres handicap. It's the sprint track at York this week, and also the round course races when you turn into home. It's going to be slightly different, actually, looking at the forecast wind, because usually it's just a fierce tailwind at York. It comes from the south and it just blows them up that home straight. But slightly bizarrely, looking at the forecast, and I'm no Michael Fish here, but it looks as if the wind is actually coming from the northeasterly direction for all 3 days. So actually down the straight, it's going to be quite a strong headwind, which is very, very rare for York, any summer meeting there. So it'll be interesting tactically how things pan out, actually, because you're often used to horses, just being prominent and then rolling away on the front end at York. But I think it might be slightly different. Well, certainly I'll keep an open mind to it being slightly different anyway. And with that in mind, I thought Glenfinnan in that 242, was definitely worthy of some interest here. A bit of an in and out horse, really. On his day, he's very good. And he probably, if it was just a normal York speedy 6 furlong test, you'd be thinking there might just be something with a bit more inherent pace in here. But his run style and the way that he's sort of produced from midfield late on, I think might well be quite suitable actually tomorrow. Ross Orion's been booked for the first time. I think it's the first time that I can see, or certainly only a very small handful of rides, that Ross Orion has ridden for Michael Dodds. So that's really interesting. And his seasonal debut run at Doncaster at the Lincoln meeting was a good bit better than the bare form, actually, because he was drawn down the stand side, which wasn't favoured in that race. And he was just blocked off when he was coming to make his run. And I think you can probably add a length or two onto his finishing position. And he wouldn't have been too far away from the winner Dark 30 that day. So with that on his back, with a bit of improvement to come, he is a horse who's gone well here at York previously as well. That has to be sort of factored into the mix to some degree. I thought, he was a good old price here, Glenfinnan. And I think, as I was looking, he was 20 odds and slightly bigger yesterday. But I think 18-1 is the best you can get right now, but certainly be willing to have a speculative each way play on Glenfinnan.
Like it. That wasn't one of the races that I got too involved with pre. Obviously, there's only so much time we can get through everything by this stage. But I remember Glenfinnan last year winning second time up. He was beaten by Dark 30 first time last season, and he was beaten by Dark 30 again this season, wasn't he? So That does look very interesting. He backed it up at Sandown, I think, a few ones later as well, didn't he? But yeah, he did. He's not necessarily an all or nothing type horse, is he? The duck eggs against their name don't do some of these horses on the flat any justice, do they? Because they can finish 10th or 12th year and they could be 3 lengths off the winner, couldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Quite like that.
He wasn't beaten far. I think it was 4 and a bit lengths,
Yeah. He's got closer to Dark 30 this year than he did last year. I like it. And I think his RPR was probably half a stone better than last year as well. So, yeah, positive comments from Will on that one and quite like it too. The couple that I had on my mind, don't know if I'll play him, probably more for an interest type stuff. But the Revenant, William Haggis and Tom Marquand in the opener. 1.5 mile, I think, is probably the more suitable trip. The grounds terrify me with him because I think he does need ease underfoot. But I think it's still 34k or something like that for the winner in here. So I can't imagine it's completely and utterly a prep run. And he is potentially a much better horse than 95 as well. So I can see he's 5-1 at the time that we're recording this. It's the type of one, Will, that I'd probably let him go and win at 5-1 and kick myself after for not backing him, rather than back him, see him get beat, and then feel like now I've got to chase. Well, not necessarily chase, but I've done a point stake on him this week, for example. Then when you're betting him next time out, you're losing what I would consider a bit of value for taking the chance. So I'm not 100% sure whether he'll make the column or not. I don't think he will at this stage because the ground has to be a negative for him. The other one that I'm tempered with enthusiasm because of what happened on Saturday, but that's probably the right thing to feel like, but then I don't know whether it is as literal as it needs to be taken. But Don Simon in the last ran behind Taquino. It was getting some weight from Taquino, but they pulled well clear of everything else. And you could see in that race that can't remember who was on. I want to say Callum Shepherd, but it's not. It might have been Callum Hutchinson. But one of the Callums was on Taquino, and he looked like he thought, "Oh, we've got this race wrapped up." Then Don Simon really made him work for it. Now he went under Ryan Moore the time after, and only just got touched off on a handicap. Only got raised £3 for that, and I would have thought he would have got raised 5 or 6 for it. So they are all weather bits of form. But with the good to firm type of ground at York, Ryan Moore's been booked again. I thought he had a proper chance. Now, the reason why I'm worried about the Saturday form is Taquino was pants in his race this weekend, but he just pulled Oisin's arms out the whole time. And not every horse always likes every track they go to. That was his first time on the turf as well. So maybe he just didn't like it. And maybe that's going to make Don Simon's form, I don't know, not be franked as much. If Taquino would have come in, I would have thought this Don Simon would have been short. So 4-1 about him does feel like a playable price. He wouldn't even be the one that I like to play like a filthy each way at those prices. I think I'd quite happily take a win dart at Don Simon. So we'll see how his price holds up, but I suspect he will be making the column. Right, Will, we'll move on to day 2, the Middleton Fillies Stakes, a Group 2 over 1 mile, 2.5 furlong. This cut up quite a bit from what it could have looked like in the week, but we're left with a pretty good looking race, I still think. We've got See the Fire head in the market as short as 6-4. Beautiful Love is 5-1. Nikhil is 5-1. Doha is as big as 11-2, but as short as 4-1. And then it's 14s or bigger, the rest of these. Now, Will, this feels like it's early enough in the season that some horses will still be used as a prep, but it also feels like it's late enough in the early part of the season that I think See the Fire and Beautiful Love both prepped with this race in mind. I'm a little bit surprised with the price discrepancy between the two of them. For all that I can understand why See the Fire's short, I think Beautiful Love's probably a little bit too big a price in my opinion. How did you see this race? Did you think it was as clear cut as the market suggesting that See the Fire just wins?
No, I don't think so. I think the thing with See the Fire is that she seemed to improve quite markedly all the way through last season, didn't she? Now it might well be that run at Sandown behind Al Azi in the Gordon Richards Stakes, because she's improved last season, she's starting out this season on a slightly higher pedestal, and that's that kind of level is going to prove to probably be too good for most of the horses that she's taking on here. The fact that Nikhil and Royal Dress are both having their first start of the season as well. I think on raw ability, they might be horses that could easily put it up to the likes of See the Fire and Beautiful Love. And I think with Beautiful Love, I would have liked to have just seen a little bit more behind Cinderella's Dream at Newmarket a couple of weeks ago in the Dahlia. Look, she ran well to a point, but I think at this, over this kind of trip at this level, you're just going to want to have seen a bit more from Beautiful Love. Now, she's only a 4-year-old. She could be improving. So I would see the most likely winner as being one of those two. But there was one that was overpriced. Now, whether it makes her an each way bet or not, because you could see her running absolutely her race and finishing 4th or 5th if the others run to form. But Carmology has really good York form. She again improved all the way through last season, loves fast ground. And she ran a more than respectable seasonal opener, I thought, in the Nottinghamshire Oaks when she was just beaten by Ambiente Amigo, who reopposes here, of course. But I think Ambiente Amigo was probably a little bit more forward. She had a prep run already that day, and Carmology just looked as if she blew up a little bit late on. So it might well be that she's just a place bet for those, for the 3 places, or perhaps if you can get somewhere that offers a 4-place market. Because I do think she'll finish, she'll probably have close to more behind her than there are in front of her, if that makes sense, in an 8-runner race. But whether she's quite good enough to go and mix it with the top level ones, I'm not sure. But she's the one that I'll be looking at. She might actually, given the prices, might be a good one to play in the market without the top 2 as well, once those markets open up. Because I do think she's overpriced significantly at sort of 25-1 in the outright. But that might be not the option to back her with. There might be 1 or 2 other options. So watch this space.
Yep, fair enough. And I think I'm more with See the Fire than anything. If See the Fire, we were doing this preview and she was like a 5-2 poke or something, which is easy to say when a horse is a 6-4 shot. But I'd be looking at her saying, look, she's definitely got to be the right sort of play in here. The run behind Al Azi that you touched on was definitely just a comeback run and a prep run for this. So I think she did show that she's ahead of where she was at the start of last year. And of course, she did win the Strensall Stakes, didn't she? Fairly well, I'd say. I mean, it was a race where she was favourite and well backed. I don't think that was the deepest Group 3, but this is a Group 2 that probably isn't the deepest either. I really did just think the Beautiful Love, because they ran behind each other in a maiden, I want to say at Newmarket. They ran behind each other. She ran behind See the Fire in a maiden. William Buick was going to the rails on her that day, and she got cut off by another horse. Now, she was never really going to get to the winner. She might have got to the winner, but she was never going to get really close to the winner after that had happened. But she did rally on a bit, and then I don't think Will Buick was too hard on her in the finish. But he's ridden her 4 times, this horse. 2 times he's won. One of the other times was when he was behind See the Fire, when I'll give her an excuse. And then the other time was when they ran in Gulfstream, and she was sent off favourite, but she got caught out really, really wide. So I just think there's an excuse about her. Obviously, Ryan Moore rode her last time when that Cinderella's Dream was well smashed, and they've run against each other before, haven't they? And they've confirmed their, I guess their like ranking or pecking order between the two of those. I just thought with Will Buick back on board, 5-1 about him with 3 places up for grabs, where we've talked about a couple of horses that will be having their first run, and then maybe there's a couple of horses at bigger prices that shouldn't have a chance of featuring. I struggle to see how Beautiful Love is not in the free. And the fact that we got, say, 5-1 top price, and it feels like a free swing that she definitely could win this race. So that's where I'm sitting with it. But it's much more of a price-related bet than the full outcome, because I do expect that if this race was run 10 times, I think See the Fire would probably win 4 or 5 of them, which makes the 6-4 look about okay, I think. So it does look a good race, doesn't it? It's one of those where I'm trying to get myself some confidence in it, because if See the Fire absolutely bolts up after, I'll sit back thinking, why didn't I just smash her, because she looks like she's better? But it isn't as straightforward as that, is it? And especially when they're priced up short, can give you a bit more confidence, but everything's price related, right?
Exactly.
Right. Speaking of price related, that takes us beautifully on to the Dante Stakes. Group 2 over the same trip as the race before. We have the Lion in Winter in here, Will. He's taken on Alpine Trail, Wimbledon Hawkeye. There's a load of other horses there as well that probably do deserve to be mentioned, but there's just quite a lot of runners that are in this race. Now, the key thing with this, I think, is, do you think the Lion in Winter is, well, we know that he's not fully wound up because Adrian O'Brien said it, but do you think the Lion in Winter is just so good that he warrants being the coin flip that the bookies have made him? Because he's odds on with some firms, he's odds against with others. So if we say for the conversation's sake, he's an even money chance, they say it's 50-50 he wins this. If he was fully wound up, surely he wins it 9 times out of 10. But I suppose it's the question of how fit he's going to be. My question as well, within that, do you think he still could win it even if he's not up to scratch? And if you also consider last year when Wayne Lorden rode him on his debut, they obviously didn't expect that much from him on the racecourse debut first time up last year. So is that anything you consider when trainers come out and give you these comments and say, look, they're not fully wound up, they're only going to benefit from the run? Do you always take that to mean that they can't win, or do you, I don't know, how does it make you view the race? And do you think the Lion in Winter can win?
That's a lot of questions there, Dave. I think, he surprised them a lot by what he did on his debut last season. I think with when horses are like that, I think trainers learn quite a lot about them in that, that the scientific and the methodical approach that there is to training racehorses, and that, trainers will always sort of hark back to. They will know what the Lion in Winter did in preparation for that debut. And so if they know that he can then translate that to something on the racetrack, which is pretty special, then you're probably thinking, well, he might be doing something similar now at this stage of the season, back on the gallops. It's not maybe suggesting that he's one of their better 3-year-olds, but actually when he reaches the racetrack, he'll probably go and outperform that. So you could certainly see that being the case with the Lion in Winter this year. I mean, he was spectacular, I thought, in those 2 runs last year. After that debut effort, he was put in a really short price for the Derby very, very quickly. So that was an interesting angle to it. Often that happens, about the best ones. It doesn't just happen by chance. So, look, I think he'll be hard to beat. But Aidan O'Brien hasn't won this since 2010. Let's not forget that. It's not often a race that is cherry-picked for one of his leading Derby candidates. He'd prefer to go to Chester or Lingfield or keep them back in Ireland. So that's an interesting angle to it. I think it's just one of those, isn't it? He's priced about right for me, really. I'm fascinated by Alpine Trail, though, because the fact that Godolphin are supplementing him, maybe they feel that there's, a chink in the Lion in Winter's armour first up. And that they've got a horse here that, interestingly, that they didn't enter many horses for the Derby and Dante and various other sort of middle distance 3-year-old races, but They're going down the route of willing to supplement if the horse proves himself to be good enough. So this wasn't when I think Charlie Appleby was interviewed after the Alpine Trails win at Newmarket, and I don't think this was on the agenda initially. So they've obviously had a bit of a think about it, thought, right, we've got a horse who's in flying form, very, very high quality. And I think at the prices, he's got to be just your absolute no-brainer each way bet, hasn't he? If he reproduces that Newmarket run, I don't think there'll be 3 horses that finish ahead of him. For all that it's an interesting field, and you might catch the line in winter cold. So if you did want to have a bet, 9-2, 5-1, each way bet Alpine Trail has to be the way to go.
Yeah, there's still 6s and 7s about him as well, Will. And I think the bookies are doing that because there's 11 runners in there, isn't there? But they're only offering 3 places as it stands at the moment, which is obviously normal terms. But instead of enhancing the prices, I think they're trying to. I don't know if they're trying to get the line and win to beat, but I think they want some money behind some of the other horses as well, don't they? Because I think they are terrified that if they do decide to pull the trigger on the line in winter, because I know what people say with the Dante Stakes. You think of the last 2 years of August Road and City of Troy both flopping in the Guineas. That's got to sit in Aidan O'Brien's mind that he knew both of those weren't 100%. They both flopped. I know they've come and won a Derby after, but if City of Troy hadn't have flopped last year, I wonder whether they may have just rolled the dice in the 1,000 Guineas like they've done with the 1,000 Guineas. And then the other thing as well is I remember before the Acomb last year, because I really fancied him after his debut. I thought he looked like a proper horse. And obviously he was going against Ruling Court, wasn't he? Everyone was saying Aidan O'Brien never sends a horse to the Acomb. And then he goes and does the juvenile course record, doesn't he? I just think the line in winter I know it's 2s going into 3s, but he isn't just a normal horse, the line in winter, I don't think. And I know the Wimbledon Hawkeye form lines are starting to make that Acomb not necessarily maybe look as good. There's no way anything on that day was ever getting anywhere close to him. And I believe that he'll still be that good this year. And this isn't the deepest of race. But I do share the sentiment that Alpine Trail, if someone said to me, you've got a £50 free bet on this race, I think I'd rather have £25 each way on Alpine Trail than I would have £50 on the line in winter. But again, I feel similarly like with the Sea the Fire race, the race before, where I feel like I'm playing the safe each way bet because I'm sure they're going to place, but I'm not 100% sure they're going to win. Whereas after, if the line of winter wins and he's gone off 11-8, 6-4, whatever price he might drift out to, and you think, geez, this is the Derby favourite, one of the best 2-year-olds we've seen for a long time, might look a gift. But there's plenty of time in the season to get stuck into horses, right, Will? I'm just really excited to see how this pans out. If the line of winter wins this, he can't lose the Derby, right?
The bookies would make you think that would be the case because he'd be very, very short, wouldn't he? But, there's a few other Ballydoyle horses that might have something to say about that, and Ruling Court and 1 or 2 other, could be a really good Derby this year.
Absolutely. Hopefully. And that's the thing. He's priced up like he's already won this race and expected not to. But most Derby winners don't win all their races. They're not unbeaten. And like I say, you look at August Road and the City of Troy, they both overcame really disappointing runs first up to go and win a Derby. All that this is a lot closer to the event. I can't wait to see it. He's a very exciting horse. And I hope that continues when we're next previewing racing, that he's still an absolute weapon. Because I don't like it when bubbles get burst, Will, because we just want to see good horses, don't we? I want to see another Galileo. Right, on that bombshell, day 2, any other fancies? I'll switch straight back to you. There's quite a few good races on the Thursday. We have got final decks. We haven't had too much time to get through them, but did you find any that caught your eye straight away?
Yeah, there was one in the Hambleton handicap, the mile handicap at 2:42. It's kind of the first of a series of mile handicaps that run through the York season, isn't it? And when you think mile handicaps at York, you think David O'Mara. But actually, David O'Mara hasn't won this race, certainly in the last 10 years anyway. I didn't trawl back further through, but he's got the favourite in here, Blue For You, who caught the eye, running with credit, I thought, on his seasonal reappearance at Haydock last time out. But I don't think that was the strongest race, really. So I think this could be an interesting race to try and take on Blue For You and 1 or 2 others at the top of the market or close to the top of the market. And the one who's becoming a little bit of that type of horse that catches the eye, gets backed, disappoints, reverts back to that sequence, catches the eye, gets backed and disappoints again. And it's Mr. King, who I'm convinced is a much better horse than he's been able to show on a number of occasions since joining Ian Jardine. He actually ran in a mile handicap here at York, the Clipper handicap in August, I think the Ebor meeting, behind Thunder Run on his seasonal debut. And it was a massively eye-catching race for me because it was a usual York mile handicap where the front 5 or 6 pretty much stayed in that grouping all the way down the straight. And he was the only one that made up ground wide and late that day. So he kind of went straight into the notebook on account of that. And he didn't really have things that dropped his way towards the back end of last season. But he had a wind-up before his seasonal debut at Redcar, which was a massive, obvious prep race, the way he went through that. And then he was backed very, very strongly, very late for the Thirsk Cup at Thirsk, obviously 10 days ago. And again, similar theme, really, actually, in a race where the prominent racers just got going down the rail, down the straight at Thirsk, never came back. He made a massive move round the bend to get into contention wide. And he was pretty much upsides with 2 furlongs to run. But that effort into a race where others were quitting, he faded and finished essentially, I think it was 6th or 7th in the end, Mr. King 7th. But again, it was just a run, which to me suggested he's got some real ability here, Mr. King. And the setup of the wind, like I said at the top of the show, sorry to bore on about the weather again, but it could be that actually that type of run style will be really suitable now for Mr. King. It's kind of the first time, I hope, that he'll have the setup where things can pan out for him and he can make his challenge through rivals and actually be suited by a race where those in front are tending to perhaps not quicken away from him. So double figure price each way, get a few extra places. I think Mr. King has to be on any shortlist in that Hambleton handicap on the Thursday, 242.
Oh, I like it, Will. And we've talked about so many races so far about being each way prices and the places up for grabs feel the right bet. These are the types of ones that you can stick in a few little multiples, can't you, for each way doubles, because the place part soon starts to roll up, doesn't it?
Yeah. One
of the few that I liked on Thursday for eye catchers was one in this race as well, to be fair. It's Old Cock that was backed at a big price for the Lincoln last time out. He ticked so many boxes for the race, but the big line that I put through him was the fact that he needs good to firm ground, and it was good to soft there. He's run on similar ground before. That was only in a 5 or 6 runner race, turned a bit fiddly, but he just looked in the end just like dead on the ground. He didn't particularly like it, couldn't quicken out of it. But he's back onto good to firm ground now. And the fact there was a bit of support for him before, it made me feel like maybe I've got him wrong about the ground. Then the fact that he's been absolutely beaten out of sight in that Lincoln makes me think, well, I'll forgive him the run because I think he needs good to firm ground, which hopefully he is going to get here. Draw-wise, I don't mind where he is. I think the last couple of winners have been in 5 and 6, but we're going to find out after the first couple of days, the first day and then a few races before this about, I guess, how things are panning out. And then as you're saying with the wind, it's not something that I really used to consider too much before, but there are so many times at the York meeting, some friends will message me and just say, you can't win if you're drawn below 9. And then they're just saying they're just laying all those types of horses. So there's lots to come into it yet. He's only 10 to 1 now. When it first came in, they still held the price up from before, and he was still about 18s or bigger. So I think he's probably skinny enough at 10 to 1. But I think the bookies have probably done that because he was backed in the Lincoln last time. So maybe he might drift out. So, I mean, he was on the short list. Whether I'd bet him or not is a different story. One that was also on the short list, but I don't think I can bet. Well, I need to make a conscious decision about this one. But his last Galileo, that's in the very last race for Carl Burke. Again, in his stable comments, he's mentioned that this horse is definitely better than his handicap mark. Clifford Lee's been riding, and he was booked up to ride this horse. But then at final declarations, they've switched to Shane Foley riding. Now, Shane Foley's got a few rides on the day, all for the same owner. But I looked at his record for Carl Burke, and they're 0 from 9 when they've teamed up together, 0 from 3 in handicaps, and none of them are anywhere near anything. And with Clifford Lee being at York, you'd think if this was the day for Last Galileo to exploit a handicap mark on his handicap debut, that Clifford Lee would stay on top. So maybe I'm reading into something that doesn't need to be read into, but Last Galileo is definitely a horse to put on your watch list or in your trackers, because I think he's going to win a big pot. Well, I say a big pot. He's going to win a nice handicap soon enough, I think. Then the one that I really did want to bet, again, it's going to depend on how prices go for the on the day. At the time I'm recording this, it's up to now 20 past 1. Top price 7 to 4, you can get about Asterius in the Weslow Stakes, a listed race, as short as 5 to 4 though. So this is where, again, price is everything, isn't it? Connections did say at the start of the season with Asterius that they were going to put him over we're going to put him over 6 furlongs, and that the main plan was the Commonwealth Cup. But there was a conditions race. They said that they were going to run him in, and they've not done that, and they've decided to start at 5 furlongs in here anyway. So I don't know whether maybe they had that thought in March and they've worked him at home since, and he's just been so fast, or whether he's going to be, because he can be a bit keen, maybe he's going to be too keen for his first run and they just want to take this one in. But I remember Tropical Storm winning it over course and distance here, and I think I'm sure Sayosi was behind, I'm sure Mr. Lightside. There was a few horses that were in and around that one, and he just got the win off the front end. So I thought Asterius, as much as like it probably is a fact-finding mission, is just far better than these in this race. Like it's a multiple group winner running in a listed race, and he's a multiple group winner over this trip. I thought 7-4 about him was mad. Like he would be almost in your Lion and Winter type territory, where he should be about an even money poke, and then it's just whether he needs the run or he doesn't need the run. Even if he does need the run, 7-4 about him is too big a price because he could still beat these without it. So fairly sweet on him. But frustratingly, the price is dwindling as we're recording. So it's one of those that might end up even money. It might have been a winner, but we can't get on, Will. Right, we will move on to day 3. There's only one group race for us to cover here. We haven't got final declarations. So the prices that we quote now, surely they will stand up until at least tomorrow. But they will obviously change when we do get final declarations, Will. So the Yorkshire Cup Stakes, over 1 mile 6. On paper, if we get, especially the front 4 running in it, looks like it's going to be a very good race. We've got Sweet William and Rebels Romance sort of vying for favouritism. They're both around about 2-1 shots, probably the easiest way to say it. Trawlerman's in there at 5-1. Continuous is 6-1. Epic Poet, Nikhil, Hamish, they're 10-1, and it's a bit bigger, the rest of these. So how do you see this one, Will? Because I don't want to say it's really straightforward. I have a bit of we all get it. We have a bit of a bias towards certain horses, and don't want to say a hatred, but we have a bit of a dislike to other types of horses. The fact that Rebels Romance got supplemented for this race, and the fact that he's just a beast of a horse, just makes me feel like how does he not win this race, Will? So I guess that's my question to you. How does Rebel Romance not win this race?
If he doesn't stay the trip. But you'd think that his quality, what he's been doing in all those Group 1s around the world, he's an extraordinary horse, really, in terms of his constitution and his ability level in those top level Group 1 mile-and-a-half races. I mean, he's been to Meydan, he's been to Chartin, he's been to Del Mar, probably missing out 1 or 2 far-flung destinations. Qatar, he's been there and picked up probably about £3 million worth of prize money in good races there. So look, he's very, very good. And I'm sure Charlie Appleby's probably looked at the entries of this race and thought, it's not the greatest ever run Yorkshire Cup, or potentially, I don't think, because there's plenty of horses here that are perhaps just now onto that beyond the peak of their curve, shall we say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the likes of Trawlerman, Hamish, even Sweet William, perhaps. I mean, I know he's only a 6-year-old, but he feels like he's been around forever, and he never quite shows up 100% on his first start of the season as well. So you could absolutely see Rebels Romance the case for him, definitely. But I just have that doubt in the back of my mind about a stamina test over 1 mile and 6, because it's not his best set of conditions, but he might just be too good that class will out. But I thought, given the race fitness of some of these that have been away to those sunnier climes, certainly worthy of interest. Epic Poet, I think, is a horse that's just gradually stepping forward each time he runs. And he finished a good 3rd in the Dubai Gold Cup, of course, behind Dubai Future last time out. Had a few of these in behind that day. He's quite closely matched with Continuous, who's been employed as a pacemaker for Ballydoyle on a couple of occasions, but might now get a chance to actually prove he could be a cup horse. So, yeah, it's an intriguing. It'll be interesting to see who's declared and how the race shapes up. But I do think the top of the market, you could maybe find a few chinks. So you could look at those, the likes of Epic Poet, like I said, and Continuous. They might be interesting each way options in here, because I don't think they're a million miles off those at the top of the market. Yeah.
I like that, Will. Yeah, Sweet William, I'm glad you said that about him. I mean, we're very much predicted, and I'm probably putting a few more words in your mouth now, but about the fact that he's been around for a long time, hasn't he? And he was very progressive as a handicapper. He's always gone a little bit above and beyond what I expected him to be able to do. And then on lots of occasions when I think, do you know what, actually, I do want to give him some credit now, he then goes and does something stupid, like slow start, or doesn't seem to get on with it in the finish. I think he's a very, hardy, tries his best type horse, but I think he's got to the level that he has got for the fact of that, he's just trying his best. But when he comes up against the real, actual Group 1 performers, I think he gets exposed for the actual standard of horse he is, which sounds really harsh to say. But I think with the two of them, I mean, Rebels Romance at the time of recording is still 3-1 with a firm, and it is short to anti-post, but he's been supplemented. There's no way he's not going to run. I think it's mental. I think he's way too big a price. So he'd be one of my stronger fancies across the entire week. I totally get the fact that we have got stamina doubts about him, But I just can picture this race setting up in a way that I don't think they'll go stupidly fast, and I think it might be a turn of foot that gets them towards the end. Of course, Will Buick's phenomenal jockey. Godolphin are riding the crest of a wave at the minute, aren't they? Winning every race. That's probably why they're supplementing left, right, and centre as well. Got too much prize money on the side. But the fact that Trawlerman I would have thought would have a bit of a chance. The fact that, the same connections and stuff, and they decided to supplement against him, it makes me really negate any threat of Trawlerman in this race. And I think if it's a match race in my mind between Sweet William and Rebels Romance, they shouldn't be about the same sort of price. Like, I wouldn't have it even money to beat each other in the race. So I'm fairly strong on Rebels Romance, but all tempered with enthusiasm, because there's only so much I'd get stuck into a race like this. But I can't wait to see it. I hope he just slams him, because he's just an absolute weapon of a horse. And again, like I said, I like to see good horses continue to be good horses and live up to that expectations. Right, Will, any other fancies for day 3? Like I said, we haven't got final declarations, so we don't definitely know who's there. But was anyone on your radar?
There's one horse I'm interested in the 5 furlong 3-year-old sprint handicap at 4:15. Not saying it's a bet or anything by any stretch at this stage, because obviously the straight track and draw biases and etc. We need to see how things pan out with regards to that. But Adrian Keatley's Do It Now is a horse that's very much on my radar for a 5 furlong handicap. I thought he caught the eye at Thirsk away from the stand side rail on his seasonal debut. He had a number of creditable runs last year, actually, but again, the draw did for him on a few occasions. And he ran a lot better than the bare form in a listed race here at York, actually. So this is quite competitive, though. It's quite deep. He's got a mark of 82. And I was sort of desperate for him to turn up in a 0-80 handicap and, try and back him at a decent price, dropping in class slightly. But if they have a roll of the dice here and he gets a good draw with a good setup, then he could easily outrun his price, whatever that price may be, of course. We'd just have to see. But you look at the profile, you wouldn't imagine that he's going to be one that the layers are going to instantly put in short. So he's definitely one to keep on the radar. But as things stand, plenty of water to flow under the bridge before we get to Friday's card, of course.
Lovely. But you will be able to check out mine and Will's final selections at the link in the description on the Whichbookie website. So if he does tick enough boxes for Will, he will be in there. The few that are on my radar-ish in the opening race, the listed Fillies Stakes, Eternal Solace, maybe not quite up to land in this particular race, but I was very impressed with her performance at Brighton. As they came round the corner, she was behind horses. She got shaped outside by Trevor Whelan to basically get a clear passage to decide to do what she wanted to do. The acceleration she showed when he pushed the button was scary, and then he slowed her down a bit. And at first glance, I thought maybe she didn't have as much under the bonnet as I thought, but looking at it, she looked like she had loads left. So this is obviously a listed race. There's lots of nice types in there, but Ollie Sanks has already proven that he's a pretty aptitude trainer. 12 to 1 about him or about her at this stage before we get final declarations probably looks about okay, but it could be a race where there's 5 or 6 horses in there that I think would probably be better. But I think she's a nice type to keep an eye on for the rest of the season. In the 3:13, which is another listed Fillies race, this looks phenomenal, phenomenal, Will. I was going to say Fillies. This looks like a phenomenal race. Again, there's loads that have got chance in it, and there's some that are really unexposed, like Consecrated for William Aggies, Tom McCann. But Golia was very eye-catching a couple of weeks ago at Goodwood when she couldn't get out on the inside. She'd be my one towards the front of the market that I would think has maybe a favourite's chance to go and win the race, despite the fact that she's not currently favourite. But again, we need to see what the final fields are. As it stands at the moment, every single one of these horses is jocked up. So I think if they did all stand their ground, then the market will shift a little bit. So we'll see how that one ends up. And then there's one in the 4:55 who, if I had my way, would be a 1 to 10 shot, but it's not going to be that. Hopefully we'll get a bit of a price. But I need someone to give me some reasoning as to how Beaumark could possibly get beat in this confined novices stakes. It's confined to horses that have had no more than 2 runs, but his run last time out, he was very unlucky to not go and win the race. He's, like, on paper, miles better than everything in this field, but obviously it's a confined stakes race where we don't definitely know how good some of these horses are. There's lots of horses that are entered in here with the same jockey booked on different horses, so I think this field's going to cut right up. There might only be 5, 6 or 7 horses that go in there, but I suspect Beaumark will be short. If the bookies don't open him up short, I expect him to get smashed. So we'll see how that one pans out, whether that makes the column or not. Right, Will, I think we're done. I think we've done pretty reasonable time there to get through as much as we have done. As I said at the start of it, and I've mentioned in between, link in the description for the Whichbookie Daily Tips. You can go check that to find out what we fancy for the whole of the York Festival, but on every single day for the racing. And we will be back again with another preview don't know what the next one is. Maybe it'll be Derby time, Will, because that's only just around the corner. But there's lots of exciting flat stuff coming up, isn't there? And I want to thank you again for your time doing this, Will. So I'll wrap it up there.
Pleasure.
And we'll speak to you all again very soon.
Cheers, Dave. Cheers, all.